Hello, 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 everybody. It is Tanika, and I am the Mindful Coach. And tonight I have a guest who has come through decades of depression, addiction, and life threatening illnesses, and even a near death experience to become an ultimate catalyst to help motivate other people, move barriers and mountains, and mobilize superpowers to achieve their true desires. Now, as a coach, he's a keynote speaker, and his masterful approach has helped people to get past old stories, change beliefs, and create a life context of rich and even getting goals that seemed impossible accomplished. He's an executive that has a notable career as a pioneer in continuous areas of energy, deregulation, and he even testified before Congress and was a key player in the resolution of the Enron scandal and market manipulation investigation in the Western US and Canada. I am telling you what, I am blessed to have guests that have done amazing things. In 2007, he left a lucrative consulting practice to explore the depression that had haunted him for decades. Depression had caused an abusive and tormented upbringing, which drove a massive cycle of ultra high performance and success, coupled with addictions and a hidden double life. This exploration led to authoring five books on meditation in the first of his biographical trilogy, Tightrope of Depression, a number one best-selling book, two albums of music followed after that, and then the second in trilogy, Down from the Gallows, is expected in the fall of 2020, which is already came. I'm sure he's going to talk to us about that. And continuing for his search and development, he trained as a coach for high achievers and performed in an award-winning choir, which charted number one on the Billboard, not once, not twice, but four times. In addition, he began speaking and creating programs for high performers, especially those who have dealt with deep issues of self-doubt and limiting stories. How many people out there can relate to that? He's dedicated to helping others tap their gifts and talents to allow them to effectively serve and grow in their own lives. His coaching is renowned for his powerful results and growth, and he's continued to speak, write, and perform regularly. He's written eight number one best-selling books with more to come in 2020 and beyond. And he's launched a new YouTube channel and popular podcast, Your Ultimate Life Formula. This guest I am so excited to have on tonight because he speaks to all that I do and am interested in right now. Coach Kellen Fluckiger is an unforgettable experience. And tonight he's my guest. Welcome, Coach. How are you?
Well, I'm fine. I'm about halfway through there. I was wondering who you were talking about.
I know, isn't that something when we hear about ourselves? It's so different when you hear it. It's like, wow, I did all that.
But it's feels a little funny to hear it all and to sit here and listen to you say all that stuff. Some of it was exciting at the time, and some of it was part of that drive to prove yourself, when I was struggling with not knowing who I was and everything else. And I thought the only way to do that was to make more money. So I got good at that, but that didn't buy very much except misery.
Well, tonight I'm just excited to have you. So I know that I read your bio and it was extraordinary. But I want you to get more intimate with us and tell us who you are exactly, what you do, and why you do it.
So the person that's here tonight with you on the podcast is a lot different than the one maybe 15 years ago. And I'm 65. I'll be 66 in just a couple of weeks on the 10th of December. So 15 years ago isn't very long for me. And for somebody else, that might be, whoa, I was in 10th grade or something. But anyway, so 15 years ago, I was that high-performing executive. I was that secret addict. I was single again for the third time after having been married and divorced 3 times. I was a miserable individual behind the scenes. I knew how to perform well in the corporate, in the industry that I was in. And so I made a lot of money and had a high profile, but I wasn't very happy. Who I am today is a very different person. My life is very mindful. I live at a very deliberate, intentional pace. I write, I coach, I look hard for people that are really ready to change who they're being in the world instead of chasing the kinds of things that we all have been taught are important, that have heard that and said, maybe I did that for a while, but it's not fun anymore. And I want to say yes to that yearning that we all have about serving with our divine gifts. And you mentioned the podcast, Your Ultimate Life, and I defined that so people would know what I was talking about. And I said, your ultimate life for me is a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy that you create by serving with your divine gifts. And see, that wouldn't have been how I defined that when I was the $3,000 a week cocaine addict. You know, it would have been a different thing. I would make so much money that didn't matter. You know, the old song, Life in the Fast Lane, it was just kind of that all the way to death. And so, you know, everything is different. What I do today is that I love, I have a sign on the wall. Sums it up. It says, I never look for clients. I look for people to love, opportunities to serve, and problems to solve.
Amen.
I mean that. And in doing that, my business is thriving. I live in peace, and I get to write books and talk to cool people like you.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, you've inspired me already, because it's so funny when you meet people that you can relate to and have the same passions and drives, and you're like, you actually get it. You get it. I understand where you're coming from. And so, I mean, I really can relate to a lot of things that you've said. And, you know, there's been so many times in my life where I've showed up and just really was pretending to play a part when I really wasn't actually being my true self. And it wasn't until I was able to actually say, you know what, I'm tired of being who everybody wants me to be or thinks that I am, and just walk out and do what I'm called to do, that I felt freedom for the first time. So I get that.
It is such a powerful, unusual, and liberating thing all at the same time. I just got a voice message from someone about 2 hours ago who's not even a client yet. We've been chatting, and he might choose to coach and I might choose to take him. But he had a baggage piece, and he was unable to have a difficult conversation that he knew he needed to have. And he owed me something today, not money, but he said he would get something ready today. And that's one of the things I used to see if people are really ready to coach, if they can keep their commitments, you know, between a couple of conversations. If I ask them to do something, and if they come up with excuses, then it tells me they're not really committed to personal change. But anyway, so he sent me a message about a half an hour before the call saying, oh, I don't want to waste your time, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't do it, drama, whatever. And I'm not dismissing it, because for him, it's earth-shattering, life-changing, soul-crushing drama. I get that. I've been there, so have you. So, but I see it for what it is. So I sent him a note back, and I said, I want to talk anyway. So we got on the phone, and he started to, I don't want to make you feel, and I said, stop. Said two things. Number one, you don't have the power to make me feel bad. You don't have the power to make me sad. You don't have the power to disappoint me. What you're telling me is that you got absorbed in this drama, and you're not doing the things that you're telling me you want to do. So I'm not upset with you. You don't have the power to make me upset. Here are our choices. And I outlined them. Go do this, this, and this in the next few days, and get a hold of me if you're ready to chat again to see if there's something to talk about. In 2 hours, I got a voicemail saying, or a voice message on the phone saying that he was so moved by our conversation that he made the phone call. He took care of it. He feels like 1,000,000 pounds lighter. He did the drama thing. It was hard. He said, you know, talked about how hard it was, and this, and that, and the other. And I know. But he did it. And that's the kind of activity and transformation that actually makes a difference in life. People come and they say, can you help me double my business? And can you help me do this, that, and the other? And the answer is probably I can. But the most effective and important thing is for you to change who you are being. And then the rest of this stuff takes care of itself.
Absolutely. And I find that a lot. And I used to have let that burden me because I felt like I need to be able to help you. But I can't want it more than you. And even though I see something, until you see it, it's not going to matter what I say. And so I can speak about that to myself, because when I found myself in the darkest place that I could possibly be in, because I'm like always this joyous person, and I'm like, how can people just be like, oh, well, when I found myself there and I decided I wanted to stay there for a while, I truly understood the only way that I could get out of that place, not because my husband tried to get me out of it, not because of my mom helping me get out of it, not of a doctor trying to help me get out of it, but me. I had to finally do what it needed to be done to get myself out of that place and be determined that I'm not going to go back there, because it's really not a place I want to be. But I let it get comfortable and I made excuses on why it was okay for me to be there. And really, when I think about it now, I'm just like, yeah, look how much time you wasted when you could have just did what you knew you had to do at that time. And that's why sometimes, and I'm like, I try not to get upset about it, but I'm like, I know what you're doing because I've done it. If I hadn't done it, then I would be able to, I wouldn't be able to understand. But because I've been there, I know exactly what it looks like.
One of the things that occurs to me about that, people often ask, especially after they've read Tightrope or some of the 40 years I had depression when I never talked to anyone, and married and divorced and in and out of rehab 3 times, married and divorced 3 times, in and out of rehab, I don't know how many times, a bunch of stuff. They ask, well, what, like, how did you stay alive during that time? Or all those kinds of things. And you said 2 things that are really important. One, you get comfortable there. And so you make all kinds of excuses. And 2, when you finally get ready to move, you probably can't do it by yourself, but nobody can do it for you and nobody can make you do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You have to decide that you are worth the trouble. You have to decide that you're willing to let the stories go and explore a new thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes that takes a long time, and sometimes that's hard, and lots of people never do. But that's what it really is about. Are you willing to explore a new thing and get uncomfortable?
Yeah. And so with all of that, see, this is what it boils down to. Through all of that, we read all these great accolades. How do you go from that to accomplishing all these great things? How does that happen?
Well, I was thick-headed. So I was raised as a child in a very religious, strict home with discipline that today would be felony child abuse. And I would have been removed from the home. At the time, I was afraid. I remember even in high school, getting dressed last in the locker room because I didn't want anyone to see the black and blue. Okay.
I get you.
Yeah. Okay. So and that's long since passed and I've long since forgiven and it's over. But what it did to me was I believed for all those years that I'm not good enough. I'm fundamentally flawed and I'll never be okay. So I started trying to escape reality with drugs and stuff when I was 13. Not peer pressure, I just was trying to escape reality. So, and I didn't talk to anyone because part of the upbringing was you can't talk to anybody. Everything is private, on and on and on. And besides that, there's all this stigma with, mental illness was people that looked weird at school and we said all kinds of mean things and all that sort of stuff. So there was nobody to talk to. I was alone and I didn't talk to a soul until I was in my 50s. So for 40 years, I did this alone. And the battlefield is ugly. The casualties are high. I'm certain I was a lousy relationship partner. I attracted people that had their own pile of baggage. In retrospect, but at the time, I had no idea what any of their journey had, how that would affect a person or how to support or help them. I did the only thing I knew how to do, which was make money. And so I lived that way for all those years. And what finally turned the corner, which was your question, was in 2007, after 40 years, I had a divine intervention. It was an invitation, an invitation from the divine to change. Now, I've never seen the divine come in and force us to do anything. It's always issued in the form of an invitation. My invitation was kind of like a 2x4. It was August of 2007. I got home from work. I was a $3,000 a week cocaine addict. I was at the height of my profession. I made so much money that $3,000 a week was lunch money. And I was getting ready to go on party for the weekend. And suddenly I had the urge to turn on the television. Now, that doesn't sound funny, except I don't watch TV. I had the biggest, coolest thing you could buy. I had somebody come in and put all this gear in, but I didn't know how to turn it on. Okay. And I didn't know how to watch it. So I asked I had 4 teenagers living with me at the time as a single dad. And so one of them turned the TV on, threw the remote at me in disgust, my 16-year-old daughter. Anyway, so I sat down and I didn't know anything that was on, but it landed on a program titled Intervention. Now, Intervention is a reality TV show, if you're familiar with it, where families stage an intervention in real time for some busted relative. Well, the protagonist in this particular program was a high-ranking executive with a cocaine problem. And so I watched about 10 minutes and I said, screw this, I'm not doing this. So I turned it off and got up and walked around the house and did something else, some other stuff. And then I was going to go out and I felt absolutely compelled to turn the TV back on. So I did. And in the middle of the hour, the program started over. And no, I don't have a DVR. And no, it wasn't on the schedule. And no, that can't happen. So I scared the crap out of me. So I watched the program. It didn't go well. The guy turned down all the help, stomped off, yelled at his relatives, and, but it scared me bad enough that I went to bed instead of going out to party. And when I went to bed, I went to hell. For some unspecified period of time, I was in a place where the events of my life went before my eyes, and I was witness to all of the struggle and suffering that everyone else and I had gone through for all these decades. And it was the most awful torture I can describe. There are no words to describe the suffering that I felt. No one was yelling at me. It wasn't like this, but it was just sadness beyond words. And after some period of time, there was a voice, and the voice said, "It is enough." And it wasn't an angry voice. It wasn't anything. It was just, "It is enough." I woke up and it was 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon. So nearly 18 hours had gone by. I got up and realized that I had been invited to change my life. So I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I got up and flushed $1,000 worth of stuff down the toilet. And I went from $3,000 a week to zero in one day. That was it. Cold turkey, straight up. But that only addressed the sobriety. That didn't address decades of depression. So the second half of the divine intervention happened 2 weeks later. In the position that I had, I used to get all kinds of free stuff. So think of a CEO that gets free tickets to this, that, and the other, and free bottles of, whatever, expensive thing. I used to get all that. One of the things I got was 2 tickets to see a classical concert by a cellist named Yo-Yo Ma. Now, if you know classical music, you know who that is. And if you don't, you don't. But he's like all there is in that universe, right? But I didn't want the other ticket to go to waste because I was single again for the 3rd time. So I came into the groups that I managed and I said, "Who likes classical music?" And some lady in one of the groups said, well, I do. And I said, "Have I ever given you anything?" "No." "Okay, fine. Here, see you there." So I gave her this ticket. And halfway through she met me there. And halfway through the show, I'm 2 weeks now, stone cold sober. Halfway through the show, I had the feeling come over me that I recognized from 2 weeks before as divine. And I thought, and then I heard a voice. My mind said, "You need to marry this woman." And I said, "You're insane." I said, I have really sucked at that. This is not happening. Come on, 3 failures plus in between. Yeah, no. And so later that night, we were backstage because, of course, they were backstage passes, right? And the feeling came back, "and you need to tell her tonight." And I panicked because, you know, I mean, she worked for me. You could sue me for harassment or whatever, right? And I argued, but you don't win those arguments. So I did. And she didn't freak out. It went like you would have expected. Are you out of your mind? But she didn't like sue me or anything, right? And over the next 2 weeks, 2 more weeks, she had her own set of experiences. And 2 weeks after that concert, which is now 4 weeks after the original one, I quit my job, not having any idea what I would do, walked away from millions of dollars of contracts, just left. She had already decided that she wanted to explore a relationship. And I walked into her office and I closed the door and I looked right at her and I said, look, I want to give you the chance to back out of all this. I said, I just quit. I have no idea where I'm going or what I'm doing. I don't know what you think you're signing up for, but you need to know that it ain't what you thought you were signing up for, because I've just quit. And she looked right at me and she said, I'm in. So she quit that day, and that was 14 years ago. So she was the angel that was sent to help me with the other half, which was the depression. And she has been relentless in finding help, finding people to talk to, doing things, helping get the books published, all the stuff to get that solved. And so when I say there was a divine intervention, I had to say yes, and I had to do some pretty strange things, but that was what turned the corner, saying yes to that.
That is phenomenal. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Because I got some feedback. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. Give me a second here. Let's see what's going on.
I can't hear any feedback. I'm not hearing anything.
Okay. And that's fine, because I can clean that up in our when it goes on the podcast. But I'm telling you what, when there is a divine intervention on your life, there's nothing you can do about it to fight it, right? I mean, it's gonna grab a hold of you and take charge.
Well, I knew for sure it was. I knew for sure what was being done. I knew for sure it was my opportunity to change. The abruptness of the change. I mean, we literally quit. Well, she had a great career. I had a ridiculously lucrative career. We quit and walked away from the industry. Had no idea what we were going to do at all in any sense. We just quit and said, okay, now what?
Wow.
That was kind of, so you're right, except accepting the invitations is sometimes scary.
Yeah. And you kind of question yourself, but I always say truth is stranger than fiction. And if I tell you this stuff, you're probably not even going to believe it because it sounds unreal. But that's why it's divine, because it's not anything that we can do on our own. And once we accept that truth, I mean, our lives are better for it. So God bless you and everything you and your wife are doing together. That's amazing.
Yeah. And her name is Joy. Like, you can't make this up, right?
Stop! Oh my God.
Her name is Joy. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, man.
No, you see, this call is a divine intervention right now. I'm telling you that it is, because you are one of the last interviews that I'm going to do for this year before I move into the next transition phase of my life. And I'm telling you, so many things have taken place from last year to this year that is just like, it's unbelievable. I mean, it is unbelievable, because I'll share with you real quick. 25 years ago, I met my husband. And when I met him, I said, you're going to be a speaker for God. And then I'm like, but I can't tell him I'm supposed to be a speaker too. But I don't know how this is going to happen. I don't even know. I don't even go to church. I don't even believe in church. It's weird. And so I'm like, how's all this going to take place? Yeah, I bet. We'll see. And his mother and I started talking, because we've been married for 20 years now. His mother and I started talking. And we would always have these conversations. And so she knew how I felt, but he didn't. And so I was afraid to tell him what was really going on with me. until this beautiful little girl came into our life. And when she did, we like inherited a child. And it's like, okay, now I always believed, because my family was rooted in the church, so I believed she needed to have some kind of background, and I didn't want to be the one to teach it to her. And so we started sending her to church, and that opened the door. And the next thing you know, everything is history. 10 years ago now, because we got her 10 years ago. So from 10 years ago to now, we answered our call together. And it was so unreal, because the night that I answered my call, I was terrified, but I had asked God to do something for me, but it took him 3 years to actually show this to me. And when it happened, I was just like, okay, this is it. And I started going down, and I told the person I was going down to be delivered to, tell the guys they can come too, because I'm always trying to help God do his job. And she's like, no worry, he's coming. And I turned around, and my husband is walking behind me. And I'm like, oh, maybe he's just coming to stand beside me. But no, he was coming to answer his call as well. And from that moment on, we took hands and we started this mission together. And weekend before last, I believe it was, I'm not sure. It's everything's running together now. We were ordained, and tomorrow we're going to be meeting with our dean, and we may be getting appointed a church. And I'm just like, all of this is happening. And every time I think about God, I didn't even want to be in organized religion. I didn't want to have anything to do with this. And then I started to get these revelations of why he placed me where he placed me. And I was like, I get it. I get it. I understand it. I see it. And I'm going to be obedient. And whatever you tell me to do from this point on. But last year, right through this journey, I started struggling, like having this it's like my life started unraveling. And it was like, were you really called? Are you really supposed to be doing this? And so it's like I'm talking back and forth, like I know who I am. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. But it's like these demons that I'm fighting to say that you're not good enough. You're nobody's first lady, and you're definitely not a preacher, and they're going to laugh at you. And who do you think you are? And it took a lot. And I ended up having a mental breakdown. And I ended up in a hospital for 7 days because I didn't sleep for 8 days. And it was a lot more going on, too, with all of that. And while I was there, I found rest and I found peace. And I was able to realign my thinking, my thoughts, and gather my purpose. And after that, I was just like, I get it and I understand. And I came back home and I gathered with my family, and I'm like, you know what? This is for real. I can't run from it. I can't hide from it. I know what I'm supposed to do, and it doesn't matter what anybody thinks. I don't care anymore. I'm going to stand up and answer for real what I'm supposed to do. And so I'm excited because, like I said, it was a long time trying to get out of that place because I was going to stay there, but I was good at pretending that I wasn't there. Really, I'd go and present and everything looked fine. And I'm like, I'm good at doing that, but it's not real. And I need to be authentic and real. And I had to strip off all of the nonsense and all of the lies I was telling myself about why I couldn't do what I was called to do. And you being here tonight further confirms that. It's like when God has something for you, he's going to make sure he sees it through. So, I bless you for coming here and talking to us and telling us, because it's not just me. It's not just you. There are so many people out there that are limiting themselves on a bigger purpose in their life because they have these doubts and these thoughts that they're not good enough or they can't do it. And you know what? We're right. We can't do it alone, like you said. So
what I know, often people will ask when I give a speech or do a podcast or speak at a summit or whatever, what's one thing, that kind of question. And there's always lots, but one really important thing that goes along with what you said is, for your listeners, it doesn't matter. Like, I had 40 years of depression and I didn't even start talking about this until I was 52. So it doesn't matter what has come before. It does not matter where you've been. The truth is that you are a divine being. The truth is you were given gifts and talents. And the truth is your divine creator has a purpose for you. And the truth is, no matter where you've been, or how old you are, or how long you've waited, it's never too late to matter and to have a big impact as you live that divine purpose.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you. So tell us about your books and how to get your books, or how to get see you in your speaking events, or even how to work with you as a coach.
You know, one of the interesting things about having a name like Kellen Fluckiger is that I'm really, really easy to find. There are two Kellen Fluckigers out of 8 billion people,
Wow.
and the other one is my son. So Google the name. It'll be in this, the program notes. Spell it right. If you spell it right, there's thousands of Google hits because of my executive career. YouTube channel, Facebook, LinkedIn. Put my name in on Amazon. There's lots of books. I also own a recording studio, so there's lots of music. I'm really, really easy to find. And my website, like getting www.kellenfluckiger.com, was really easy because there was no competition. Like I didn't have to pay a bunch of money for my name. It was $2.99 or whatever domains cost. So if you want to connect with me, Facebook, my email is coachkellenfluckiger@gmail.com. You can get on my list on my website. There's some free stuff there to give me your email. So I'm easy to find. And all my books are on Amazon, and there's more coming. I just finished the first draft of a book about a week ago, and the name of the book is really apropos for this conversation. It is Forgiveness, a Journey of Courage to a Place of Freedom and Power. That'll be out in probably February.
You know, I really do believe that likeness attracts likeness. And it's been so inspirational to me since I started this podcast, because I was in the shower and this revelation just hit me: do a podcast. And I'm like, I don't like talking on the camera. Now, this is the weird thing about me. You can put me on a stage in front of people and I will talk all day long. But on a camera, I feel weird because I can see myself, I can hear myself. But when I'm looking out into the audience, I just can go with the flow. It's okay. I'm not looking back at myself. And so it took a long time. I was like, I had to do these videos and I had to do all this stuff to try to get ready. And then I realized that this isn't about you. This is about helping other people learn how to get past their fears. And in order for you to do that, you got to get past your own fear. And so I started this platform for people like you to come on here and speak about not how to make money, not how to start a business, but what it takes to get there. Because anybody can run a business, but normally if they were not in the right mindset, if we don't understand what it takes to show up and be present in that moment, then that business is going to run us. And so hearing these stories helps us to understand that, wow, you mean at that point, well, I'm only 23. I'm not 23. Maybe 23 years ago I was, but I'm saying a 23-year-old might say, I'm only 23, and they're in their 40s and 60s and they just are starting. There's hope. And so when they hear that, it gives inspiration. And so when I realized that this is an opportunity for me to give back, I don't want anything out of it. I just want people to be inspired and to see that if we're not being our best selves and living to our full potential, then we still can get up and let's go. So I appreciate you taking the time out away from your family and lending yourself to share your story with us tonight.
Happy to do it. You know how I have a podcast too, and it's a different format. It's really short. It's 15 minutes a day. But how that one started is really funny, because at the beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020, so 20 months ago or something, just the lockdowns were just starting. And someone who knew that I did motivational speaking called my wife and said, does Kellen have a podcast? Because he was looking for something to listen to or whatever. And I didn't. And she said, yes. And then she came downstairs and said, we have a podcast. So in March of 2020, I started a a 15-minute daily podcast. And today I just recorded episode 535.
Wow, that's
And so
awesome.
if you want a short daily thing, Your Ultimate Life, 15-minute daily podcast on all the regular podcast places.
All right, go listen to the podcast. Go to Amazon, Google that name, read these books. This is a real person with a real connection that's been through some things. And so you got to go through some things to get to some things. If you really want it bad enough, you can achieve it. And so is there anything that you would like to leave our guests with tonight before we jump off of here?
Yeah, I don't get the opportunity right this minute to see each of your beautiful faces. You may either be thinking, wow, that was inspirational. You may be thinking, yeah, I've heard that before. Or you might be thinking, yeah, that's nice for somebody, but not for me. If you're thinking any one of those things, I'd like you to just take 1 second and look me in the eyes and understand that I am talking to you. This is for you. You have divine gifts and you have the opportunity to serve with those. Whether you make money at it or whether you do it as service or whether you do it just because you love, it's all the same thing. The happiest we can be, and this is coming after those years of being, big dog, this, that, and the other. The happiest we can be wasn't any of that. It's serving others with our divine gifts, seeing the opportunities and taking them to lift and bless the lives of others. That's made me happier than any amount of money I ever made or any amount of stuff I ever had or anything.
All right. Well, there you have it. I thank you so much. Stay on with me. Don't go anywhere. But everything that Kellen said is so true. And I feel it firsthand. And if you don't feel like he was talking to you, I know he was talking to me. I'm looking right at him and I got that message. And so I'm going to take it and I'm going to run with it. But this is Tanika Sings. I am the Mindful Coach. And this is Monday Mindfulness. I hope you were able to open your eyes, hearts, and ears to receive this information and hear this story, because it might be something that resonates with you, something you're going through, something you might have been through, or something that one day you might even enter into. But remember, as long as you've got breath in your body, you still have life, and you were created with a purpose. So go be great. Well, thanks for watching the show. Stay tuned, because I got a great announcement that's going to be coming up pretty soon, and I want everybody to hear what I've got to say. So I'll be making that announcement before the end of the week. Until then, I'll talk to you soon. Now go mind your business.